Hallo und herzlich willkommen bei Don't Waste, Be Happy, dem Zero Waste Podcast für mehr Leichtigkeit in deinem Leben. Ich bin Mariana Braune und ich freue mich so sehr, dass du gerade hier dabei bist und ich hoffe, dass du es dir so richtig gemütlich gemacht hast, denn heute wartet ein wirklich so unfassbar cooles Interview auf dich mit einer so inspirierenden Frau. Aber bevor ich da jetzt gleich einsteige, wollte ich dir noch erzählen, dass die Realisierung und die Planung meines Zero Waste Online-Programms in so richtig greifbare Nähe rückt. Und zwar laufen unsere Vorbereitungen auf die große Bali-Reise gerade auf Hochtouren. Und auf Bali werden wir ja den ganzen September sein und ich werde da als eine der Finalisten der Talentschmiede dabei sein. Und die Talentschmiede ist ein Unternehmer-Coaching-Programm, in dem ich von hochkarätigen Experten und Unternehmern unterstützt werde, meine eigene Business-Idee erfolgreich in die Tat umzusetzen, nämlich eben unter anderem mein Zero Waste Online-Programm. Und ich freue mich einfach schon so unfassbar auf diese Reise in so vielerlei Hinsicht, denn einmal natürlich an die Reise an sich, weil Bali einfach wunderschön ist. Zum Thema Zero Waste Reisen kommt übrigens in den nächsten Tagen auch eine neue Folge, ein sehr, sehr wichtiges Thema. Und dann freue ich mich natürlich auf die Umsetzung des Programms, weil es wirklich so vielen Menschen dabei helfen kann, Leichtigkeit und Nachhaltigkeit in ihr Leben zu integrieren. Und ich freue mich einfach so sehr darauf, auch innerlich zu wachsen und bin einfach wahnsinnig gespannt, was diese Zeit für mich bereithalten wird. Und ich werde dich natürlich auf Instagram unter @don'twastebehappy.de mitnehmen und du kannst hautnah dabei sein. Und ich würde mich einfach wahnsinnig freuen, wenn du mir da folgst. Das wird einfach wirklich eine Riesensache und so großartig. Und ja, jetzt spanne ich dich wirklich nicht länger auf die Folter und nehme dich mit. Freue mich einfach riesig, mit dir diese heutige Folge zu teilen. Ich hatte nämlich die große Ehre, niemand geringeren im Podcast-Interview zu haben als Gittemary Johansen. Falls du noch nicht von ihr gehört haben solltest, was vielleicht unwahrscheinlich ist, aber ja dennoch sein kann. Gitte ist eine der lustigsten, fröhlichsten und auch undogmatischsten Hippie Zero Waster, die ich kenne. Und es hat so unglaublichen Spaß gemacht, mit ihr zu sprechen. Ich glaube, das hört man auch. Und das Interview ist auf Englisch, denn sie ist Dänin und eine echte internationale Größe der Zero Waste Community. Sie ist zum Beispiel als gefragte Speakerin unterwegs und ja, sie streut einfach Inspiration und ihr ganzes Wissen zu einem nachhaltigen Lifestyle. Und genau darüber sprechen wir, unter anderem natürlich auch darüber, wofür sie als YouTuberin berühmt geworden ist, nämlich ihr Zero Waste Make-up. Und Gitte verrät ihr absolutes Lieblings-DIY. Wenn du also wissen möchtest, wie es funktionieren kann, sich sein Make-up selbst zu machen und das dann auch noch aus völlig natürlichen Zutaten, ohne jegliche Chemie und zum größten Teil auch noch verpackungsfrei, dann ist dieses Interview genau für dich. Und außerdem, und das ist auch wirklich super spannend, sprechen wir über den Zusammenhang zwischen Zero Waste und Veganismus, warum es so kraftvoll ist, auch in Übereinstimmung mit seinen eigenen Werten zu leben. Und wir sprechen darüber, dass es einfach so viele Formen gibt, Zero Waste zu leben, dass niemand perfekt sein muss, was mir wirklich wahnsinnig wichtig ist, immer wieder zu sagen, und warum auch der Begriff Zero Waste so oft missverstanden wird. Du siehst, in diesem Gespräch steckt also schon wieder eine ganze Ladung Inspiration und Energie. Und deswegen würde ich sagen, legen wir jetzt einfach direkt los und ich wünsche dir ganz, ganz viel Spaß mit diesem Interview. Welcome, Gittemary. How are you and where are you right now, actually?
Hello, and thank you so much for having me. I'm great. I'm just enjoying a very quiet evening here. I'm in Denmark, so there's whole that. But thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here. I'm looking very much forward to talking to you.
It's such a pleasure to have you in my podcast, and I'm more than happy to talk to you today. So to just give everyone a quick overview of who you are and who you have become, you decided to go zero waste in 2015, and you are saying about yourself that you switched out impulsive buys Fashion Week and so-called must-haves for a zero waste and plastic-free lifestyle. And today you are the most amazing eco YouTuber and influencer I know.
And, oh, thanks, love.
And you create inspiration, recipes, and really awesome tutorials and guides for reducing trash and finding non-materialistic values, which I think is absolutely beautiful. So I'm most interested actually in that process of yours of going zero waste. What happened before you decided to go zero waste? Was there any decisive point in your life that made you switch your values and lifestyle from being a so-called wasteful fashionist to becoming a thoughtful, eco-concerned zero waster?
You know, it's funny because I certainly have milestones and moments in my life where I knew walking down this path that something different would happen, and zero waste was one of these things. But I think I've always been prone to a alternative direction in life. I told my mom when I was way smaller that I hated packaging. I thought it was ugly and unpleasant to look at, and that I didn't want it in my apartment without even thinking about the ecological aspect of it.
Right.
But just these small steps. I worked at Fashion Week, which I talk about sometimes on my channel as well. And I worked with fashion and fast fashion in particular. And I never really thought about the environmental impact of fast fashion, but I stopped working in it because I thought it was too shallow, too superficial, and people were very unpleasant to each other. And just gradually I found my way, and I realized at one point that I wanted to do something that was meaningful, and fast fashion for me wasn't meaningful. And shortly after realizing that, I read an article in the Huffington Post about a woman, and that woman was Lauren Singer from Trashes for Tosses.
Funny.
Who had all her trash for 3 years in a mason jar. And the reason why that really resonated within me was because I never before thought about trash as a resource or something that you wanted on display. I never really thought that you owned your own waste. So seeing a woman that owned it completely and it was her possession just shifted everything inside me, and I wanted to see if I could achieve the same thing. So I just started little by little eliminating plastic bits. I didn't, which is something most people, they think when I tell them that I went plastic free. But most people think that I just went into my apartment and found everything that was in plastic and tossed it and replaced it with new things. But what I really did was every time I had an empty container, every time I needed to replace an item in my household, I thought about an alternative. Instead of doing the things that I knew and was accustomed to, I tried looking for different solutions. So when I ran out of disposable plastic bags for my freezer, I stopped and tried to think of a new solution.
Right, that sounds so awesome.
All the time, because then these steps eventually they become routine and it doesn't seem like that much of a change. But if you want to switch everything out in one go, you'll grow tired of it at some point because it's just too much. I usually say that if you want to run, you do not start with a marathon, you know? You don't start with that. You start with training once a week, just going for it little by little. And that's the same with zero waste and with any sort of big lifestyle change, I reckon.
That's actually a really nice metaphor, how you can see that whole zero waste journey. And what I really liked about the things you just said was that it's actually a lot of baby steps and a whole of zero waste journey, and not...
Definitely.
Yeah. So what I'm interested in is, how exactly did you start your zero waste journey? Like, what was the first baby step you actually took?
The first thing I did was I started refusing. Before replacing anything, I refused plastic straws. I said no to plastic bags that I got in the grocery store, and I brought my own canvas bag instead. I had my drinks without a straw. Just these small things that aren't even active actions, so to speak. They're passive. They're completely passive because it's all refusal. So I started by doing stuff like this. Also, when I went to the grocery store in the beginning of my process, I picked out products without plastic packaging. So I went for something in tins, I went for something in cardboard rather than something in plastic.
Right. So what do you think about the zero waste mindset? Because I think one of the most important things by starting zero waste is to have set your zero waste mindset, what I call your biggest why, because only if you know your why you want to do this, what you want to achieve by living zero waste or more sustainable, then you will be able to really live zero waste forever and for more than just a couple of weeks. So
Definitely.
What is your biggest why?
Well, the thing that really provoked me and started the engine, so to speak, was the fact that I read that every piece of plastic ever produced in the world, ever, is still here. It never goes away. It never disappears. And that in itself is bad enough. But think about the way we use plastic things. We toss it after one use. We use it as a disposable material, but it's here forever. You use a straw for 10 minutes and then it's gone. Then it's out of your life, but it's on this planet and will be here forever. Plastic does not degrade. It just degrades in quality. It becomes smaller and smaller pieces of plastic, and in some form or another, everything is still here. And I started thinking about my trash not as something that I toss or I throw in the bin, but every time I would do so, I would put it in an imaginary backpack. Mm-hmm. And that backpack becomes really heavy if you use plastic cutlery every single day. If you use plastic bags, if you use cotton pads, all of these disposable items, if you use those every single day, your backpack will get heavy. Right. And that is my biggest why, I think, just respect for materials and respect for our planet, because it all is here. Everything is here. And yeah, we can't escape it.
So your biggest why literally is
light baggage. Yeah. Light baggage all the way.
Exactly. So what do you actually tell people when they come up to you and say, well, you know, I would like to live zero waste, but it's so expensive. What's your answer?
Well, for me, at least, I say it's not expensive for me. I use the exact same amount of money most of the time because I love myself some thrift shops. But I spend the same amount of money. My economy has just shifted from things that I spent little money on. I mean, you know, stuff like fast fashion, it's super, super cheap. I stopped doing that. I stopped buying convenient products, which often are quite cheap. And I started paying the real price for real items. For instance, a cotton shirt produced sustainably is expensive because you need to pay farmers, you need to pay factory workers fair wages. So I spent more money on something and less on other things, but it's a whole shift. So you will use your money as your vote, and you will vote with what you buy, so to speak. And it's just shifted. The same. It is completely the same for me. I don't use more or less money than I did before.
Okay, just put it in a nutshell. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I tend to go on and on and on and on.
No, that's absolutely fine. I love to listen to your British accent and you talking, actually. Even though you're a Danish girl.
I'm a Danish girl, but it's 100% my environment just getting the best of me from this one. Yeah. It's always been like this. Fun fact, it's my mom's fault for making me travel with her when I was smaller. So it's stuck and it never got away.
You seem to have an awesome mom.
My mom is the best. She's gorgeous. She's so good.
Aww. Okay, we're going to have another podcast interview about your mom. How about that?
Yeah. She would love that. She would love that. She's also my biggest hype man on Instagram. She comments on my posts.
You're probably most famous for all your incredible and easy DIYs for zero waste makeup on YouTube. How come you decided to give it a try to mix your makeup yourself?
Well, I've always been quite fond of makeup. I stopped wearing it recently, just a few months ago, because I didn't really feel that I needed to. But I've always been really fond of dressing up and doing something nice for yourself and, you know, making yourself look nice. And this is actually also my mom's effort. She told me at some point that if you're not going to eat it, don't put it on your face.
Right.
Which is words to live by. It's not great, but she's a very clever woman. And I just thought that maybe I could make my own makeup from things in my kitchen. So I started experimenting with cocoa powder and cinnamon and shea butter and beets and just activated charcoal, all of these things that I had in my kitchen anyway. Coconut oil is also something that I use a lot, and I used it to make my lip balm. That's tinted with, what's it tinted with? It's tinted with cocoa powder and beetroot, and it has this really nice tan color. It's so gorgeous. But yeah, I just thought that because you can't really know for sure what's in cosmetics, because no ordinary human understands the labeling on cosmetics anyway. Yeah. We have no idea what's in it, and it's wrapped in plastic. And when I started going zero waste, I realized I wouldn't be able to buy conventional makeup because it's all wrapped in plastic. So I thought I might as well try and make something myself, and just used my mom's advice to guide me on this one. And it was really a trial and error phase in my blogging experience, because I've never failed so much on open camera as many times as I've done with my makeup. But I think it's a part of the process as well, and I really want people to see that, oh, this didn't work out, but maybe this formula will work out. And it's different for skin types and for weather conditions and, you know, everything. So we need to experiment and make it a fun thing instead of making it, you know, a convenience thing. Let's make it our hobby. Let's make it something we are passionate about. And I made it something that brings me joy instead.
Exactly. And I just love to see how passionate you are about this. It's so funny. I wish everyone could see how you're gesticulating and laughing about it.
It's all the time. It's madness. I mean...
Yeah, but it underlines your passion for zero waste makeup. So I really love to see that. And isn't it very time consuming to do your zero waste makeup yourself instead of going into a grocery store and just buying it?
Well, yeah, obviously it takes more time, but I know zero waste is also my job because that is what I do for a living, but it's also my hobby, and I love spending time on it. I love failing at recipes and trying it all over, and it brings me so much joy. And the reason I'm spending so much time on it is so that you don't have to spend so much time on it, because I try to find the best recipes that will work for the most people. So yeah, I spend a lot of time on it, but if you follow my recipes, you will spend marginally less time than I did, hopefully. But I also think it's important to note that we've been conditioned to believe that if it's convenient, it's good. And if it's inconvenient, it's bad. Like, inconvenience is a bad word. It's negative. It has negative connotations. And I do not think that's true at all. I think some things are meant to be inconvenient because it's worth doing. Right. Convenient things are never worth doing.
Just like cooking for yourself and cutting and really being passionate about cutting in that moment. Yeah. Being mindful with everything you do.
Yeah, and mindfulness is very often inconvenient because it's not fast. It's not something that you see results from directly and right away. It's something you need to invest in order to really benefit from. And that's why if something is convenient, it's usually not for me. Everything I like to do is really, really difficult. And I think that's
so funny that you noticed that about yourself.
Well, yeah, it's just at some point you need to stop and realize, wait, everything I'm doing is just basically a bother.
So funny. So, and how does your zero waste makeup actually work for you? Like, is there a favorite recipe you'd like to share, or do you even have a favorite recipe?
I think my favorite recipe will have to be my concealer, because it's the one I recently developed, it is one of my most recent recipes, but it's still just a year old or something. It's been around for a while, but it took me so much time to really get it right, but I use it so much. And what I like about my makeup the zero waste makeup I make myself does not mean to cover anything up. It's there to enhance what's already beautiful. So my concealer, for instance, does not really conceal. It's just enhance my natural glow instead, which I really, really love. But I do really love my concealer. It's so moisturizing and good, and it smells really nice because it's based off of cocoa butter. So my face smells like chocolate, which is nice. But if I just had to explain how I made it really quickly, I mixed cocoa butter and shea butter together, melted it together, just whipped it for a while. And then I added just a little bit of cocoa powder, a little bit of cinnamon, and some Botanic clay that I got in bulk. Okay. And just let it stir a bit for a while. And the first time I used it, it wasn't good at all. But then I let it sit for 24 hours. And then when I got back to it, it was perfect. So it needs to settle. It's a living process.
Again, it's a living process.
Yes.
Yeah, so I can also put that recipe in the show notes, by the way. But thanks for telling again how it's made of. What I always wondered about was where and how do you actually get your ingredients package free? Because what I noticed is that most, or at least some of the ingredients, don't come package free. So where do you actually buy yours?
It is a giant problem that most ingredients do not come package free. And I will be the first to say not all my ingredients are package free. My coconut oil comes in a glass bottle, but I've had this really amazing collaboration with Isangs, which is a soap store in Copenhagen, and they find all of their soaps and ingredients extremely ethically and sustainably. On their website, they have a list of all the farmers that they're connected to. So it's very transparent, which is lovely. And they have these huge bulk jugs with cocoa butter and shea butter and clays. And it's also where I get my activated charcoal from, which is also in bulk from there. But it's a store in Copenhagen, and it's such an amazing initiative. And I've been using that for years and years. It's really good. So they send sometimes they send stuff to me in cardboard. But other than that, I try to visit them whenever I'm in Copenhagen.
Okay, great. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good place. So if you're nearby, it's always worth a visit because it's so beautiful with huge glass containers with oils that they make themselves and stuff. It's good.
Zero waste in generally is so aesthetic, don't you think?
It is, though. It is the most Insta-worthy lifestyle of all time. Because have you noticed whenever a supermarket is advertising something, they never advertise stuff in plastic. It's always, loose carrots and loose flowers and just woo. But in reality, everything is packaged. But we do not want to advertise the packaging because plastic is unsustainable, but also super boring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So talking about that zero waste lifestyle being very aesthetic, I got a lot of questions, people asking me, I have a couple of plastic boxes, but I would like to live zero waste. So what should I do with those plastic boxes? Because on Instagram and on social media, it seems like every zero waster has that pretty aesthetic zero waste lifestyle, having glass and...
It's great. Actually, I have a video out just very soon about this exact problematic, because what I think is problematic is that we have so many gorgeous influencers promoting a sustainable lifestyle. But what usually happens is that we, and myself included, we provide people with this idea and this image that in order to be zero waste, it has to look like this, which is not true whatsoever. I'm a member of a Danish zero waste group on Facebook, and that is gorgeous because it has real people that aren't influencers that also show what they do. And one girl, she wrote, if it can be washed and reused, do that. So even though it's made out of plastic, reuse it instead of throwing it away. Because maybe eventually you'll have to throw it away, but at least get some use out of it if you end up with some sort of plastic container. I tell the same thing to people coming to me and saying, I have these Tupperware containers, I've used them for ages and ages, and I really don't want to throw them out. Then don't. Then use them, because if the alternative is that you have to go out and purchase new things, that's worse. Don't purchase new things if you have good functioning things already.
Exactly.
Because the first rule of zero waste is refuse. and refuse to buy stuff just to buy stuff. But I think that social media, as good as it is in so many ways, will also provide people with this false ideal on what's right and what's not. So I try to be as transparent as I can about these things and say, I mean, yeah, this is super, super pretty, but sometimes it's not that pretty. Sometimes it's not. And that is okay. It is not less sustainable because it looks worse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and reflecting on your zero waste journey, what are the most positive or outstanding side effects from living zero waste for you?
I think that the best thing that happened from zero waste was the fact that I feel like my opinion matters. And I realized through zero waste that my power as a consumer is so impactful, and all our powers as consumers are so impactful that our opinion matters, because whenever we buy stuff, we vote. And I think that's really, really empowering. I really, really like that. Because usually when you talk about sustainability, it becomes this thing that is out of your control. It becomes this thing that it's up to governments and companies and quota and committees. And it has nothing to do with the individual people. And I reckon we are more individual people than we are governments.
Right.
So
and
it is our actions that are the most important. And I think zero waste is such an amazing lifestyle for acknowledging that.
And at the end, it does something with you, because living with your values actually is such a great fulfillment in your everyday life. So it's not just doing something for the environment or living sustainable, but also living along your values, which makes you feel really good, I think.
Definitely. Living according to my values and living in alignment with what I actually believe is super, super empowering, because most people believe in things or, have opinions regarding things, but it's not very many people that have the ability to actually live through that. And I think zero waste is such a nice way of doing it. It's the same with veganism, for me at least, that living in alignment with my values in that regard as well has just been the most positive impact on my life in general.
Right, you just became a vegan just recently, I know.
Yeah, it's not, it hasn't been very long, but I'm losing track because I keep saying, oh, I've only been vegan for a few months, and I reckon I've been since winter. So I can't remember anymore. It just all falls together. But yeah, that is also something that I decided after a long, long time, really fighting it in a lot of ways. I decided to live according to my values, and it has been so amazing. But that's something that Instagram and social media help with me as well, because I met up with Sustainably Vegans, Imogen, she's amazing, and Blue Olives in London. I saw them and we talked about veganism, and meeting them was just the most amazing thing that happened for my lifestyle perception.
Really? How come?
Yeah, because I live in a place where I do not have people around me that understands, and talking to them, and they ask me, why did you become vegan? And they were really, really happy about it. And just seeing the way that they were passionate about other than themselves was so, so amazing. And I thought to myself that I wanted just that, to dedicate my life and to use my voice, not just to better my own life and to better my own situation, but to better everyone's situation, which is what zero waste is about. Because if zero waste was just about improving your own life, you would just go to the grocery store and buy conventional products and put it in mason jars and make it look pretty for Instagram, right? The reason we do all the hard legwork is because we care about others than ourselves. So for me, veganism and zero waste just combined perfectly.
Right. So what has changed for you since you've become a vegan?
Well, I've started to own it a lot more. I've started not to be so scared of refusing certain things and saying, it's such a nice gesture, thank you so much for making this, cake or roast or whatever, but unfortunately I won't be able to enjoy it because I don't eat that. And it was a very weird experience going from not having an issue with eating, non-vegan food when I was out, to owning it, standing up to it and saying, you know what, I feel better if I don't do it. So that was really, really great. So many things have changed, I think, though, because also I made a video about strange side effects from veganism, where I stopped being scared of animals.
Okay.
Just started just saying, hello, spider friend.
It's probably worth watching, I guess.
Yeah, just so many strange things happened. And yeah, I just feel so much more centered. And that sounds like some hippie talk. It is.
Well, you are a hippie.
Yeah, and you know, hippie talk can be true as well. So
yeah.
I think something that held me back quite a lot regarding veganism was the unsupportive environment I was in regarding veganism. And as soon as I owned up to it and said, I'm a vegan, yeah, I know, crazy. People started having a totally different opinion about veganism, started really being super supportive. So as soon as I owned it, people sort of followed and started being super understanding about it. So that was really nice.
That's just a funny thing I noticed myself too, is that just by standing up and living according to your values and doing what you do, people will just start following you.
They will. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I had this amazing milestone earlier this summer where I talked at Brain Bar in Budapest, this innovative festival, and I had to sit in this debate and be pro-veganism and talk to an anti-veganism woman, and she was very, very nice. There was nothing there. But I started out having 3 minutes to speak, and I didn't know that I had to, you know, open everything and talk. And I just started talking. And after I finished and she was about to say something, people, you know, they stood up and they were applauding me. Wow. And it was just so amazing. So yeah, I went from that talk, because it was one of the biggest things I've ever done, I reckon. I went straight from that talk down to tattoo parlor and got the vegan tattoo, the V.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's just because I was just high on love, I think.
Such an amazing support you got there.
It was so great. And that experience really helped me just own it as well. Just, this is actually quite an amazing thing. This is super rad, and I do not have to be apologetic about it in any way. I usually say to my friends, I didn't expect to be this preachy vegan, but here I am. It's fine.
And you probably love being that kind of person, don't you?
Yeah, because when I'm passionate about something, I'm very, very verbal about it. So I love talking about it. So sometimes I can end up just having a chat with my friends at a pub or something, and suddenly we've been talking about the welfare of cows or plastic for just half an hour, and I haven't noticed because I've just been going and going.
It's so funny.
Yeah, I mean, I have good friends, they listen.
So how about your boyfriend? You just mentioned him earlier. He lives zero waste too, right? Because you're living together, obviously, and...
No, me and my boyfriend, we do not live together.
Okay.
It's also fairly new. We haven't been dating for that long.
Okay.
But he is completely vegan whenever I'm there. He is not when he's with his family and stuff, but he really, really tries for me, which I appreciate so much. It's so lovely. And he's very curious about zero waste and how I do things. And I usually cook, so I show all kinds of tricks and recipes and how you can do this, and you can do this and this and this. So he's very good in that regard.
So you don't have the feeling that you have to convince him or anything?
Not at all. I mean, it was his own idea to not eat animal products at all, and he just texted me a few days ago that he switched out all dairy in his fridge for vegan versions instead, because he thought it was nicer anyway, and completely his own idea. I'm just here for the ride. I mean, he's going by himself, so at some point I think maybe he will be more and more into it.
Well, how do you actually cope with people who stand up blaming you for what you do, or maybe there's some people in your life who don't react in that positive way as those people at that conference you mentioned earlier, who gave you standing ovations for your vegan talk? how do you actually cope with those kind of people? Or how do you stand up for zero waste, veganism, and your lifestyle?
Well, yeah, obviously not all people are super supportive and on board with everything we do, because my working space is the internet, and you can't even, burp in a wrong direction without having someone being super offended by it. So obviously I deal with people not being super supportive or thinking that I do things wrong in one way or another. I recently made a video because of my whole trip to China also, but also generally I have been traveling a lot this summer for work and for lectures. And I've been getting a lot of criticism relating to airplane travel, which I understand, because it is so bad. It is not optimal, but sometimes there aren't any other options. And I like to say, I mean, getting a straw, not getting a straw, you do have a choice. Eating an animal, not eating an animal, you do have a choice. But getting to China, I mean, there isn't really much of an option, is there?
You could swim, Gitte.
I could swim, or I think someone suggested on Instagram that I should make a boat out of hemp seeds. Float on that. And I really, really enjoy that. I mean, because plane travel is the worst, literally, but sometimes you do not have any other option. And I think sustainable choices, you can make sustainable choices and not be completely perfect, because no one is perfect. If I was to be a perfect zero waster, I would just sit in a corner of my apartment until I was dead, and with a note on me saying I didn't want to be cremated because cremation is really, really bad for the environment. I mean, no one is perfect and no one is zero waste, and I would never, ever, ever say that I was zero waste. But zero waste becomes this representation of an ideal. It is not the practice.
Oh, you just pinpointed it so well, because
people can't see this because they can only hear us, obviously, but I just made the mic drop gestures because I really thought it was necessary.
Yeah, and for me, I just think that it doesn't matter whether it's called less waste, minimal waste, or zero waste. In the end, it's all the same.
It's all about conscious consuming, which is one of the best words to attach to this lifestyle. I think it's just about making conscious decisions, not based on convenience or what's the cheapest, but based on what's the best in your situation. Because, as I say, not all people have the access to bulk shopping. Like, I do not have the access to my bulk soaps when I'm not in Copenhagen, and that's the case for almost everyone. We do not have perfect bulk stores, and you can still be zero waste because you can still be a conscious consumer. You can still make a informed decision and choosing one sort of packaging over another sort of packaging, or choosing something that's produced nearby as to 100 miles away. I mean, you can still make conscious decisions. It's about finding your balance and finding your way and making informed decisions based on your values and not on convenience.
Right. You just put it in a nutshell again, but I think that's one of the hardest things living zero waste or more consciously is to find exactly that balance you just pointed out, because especially regarding traveling, it's something which really bugs me, because I want to see the world and I love to travel and see the world, but as you just said, that sometimes there is no better way other than taking the plane. Yeah. So how do you manage to find that balance for you in your everyday life? Would you consider yourself done transitioning, or is there a topic you still find challenging today?
I would say no one is ever finished transitioning, because I will always have new issues, just new things that I will need to replace, also, through my life and social media, I also age like a normal person. So I know it's crazy, big revelation. I move forward in my life sometimes, and with that, I become older and I have other things that I need to deal with. And when you move into a new chapter of your life, you move into new problems and new solutions. So you will never ever be done transitioning, never. And a good example of how I find my balance is, for instance, I was forced to take a plane ride and to travel to China, but then I did it with an electronic boarding pass, and I refused dinners and I refused straws, and I didn't open. They had this blanket that was packaged in plastic, so you could use it. Then I used my jumper instead. I made conscious decisions, even though I was on a plane, because me sitting in a plane isn't a wild card to go nuts in plastic products. So I made all the smaller, just the minest conscious decisions really, really helped me out. Yeah. So yeah, it's all about finding this balance and not thinking about, well, if I'm doing this, I might as well do this because then we will never be finished. Oh, I got the straw in my drink, might as well get a pepperoni pizza. I mean, it doesn't work like that. So one bad thing does not equal a wild card to all of the kinds of unsustainable practices, you feel?
Yeah. So we are almost coming to the end of that interview.
I've been talking for ages and ages. I'm sorry.
And it has been such a pleasure for me. And I got so inspired again by everything you said, actually. But there are a couple of last questions I'd like to ask you. If there was anything you could change in this world right away, what would that be?
The Great Pacific Garbage Patch. I think it's a big thing to change. It's one of the.
You're Batman.
Yeah, it's one of the greater issues that we have. But the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is so mind-numbingly huge. And could I just, copy paste it and just make it go away? That would be really, really lovely. I would love to change that. I would also love to change this mentality that so many people have. And every time I give a lecture, people tell me this. They say, yeah, but one person doesn't make a difference. And that is the most toxic thing that you can ever think. Because if everyone thought that, we would be in a very, very sad place. Politically, economically, technologically, we would be in the worst of places. Right. We wouldn't have any right to be sitting here talking for the first thing, So thinking that one person can't make a difference is bollocks. And could I remove that and make people see their actions as a bigger part of something, as a unity? We could move so many things.
Oh, that's such a nice idea, actually. Thank you.
It's almost worthy of an inspirational poster.
It is. Where can we find you in this whole World Wide Web?
You can find me on YouTube. It is probably the platform I am, most elaborate on. I make videos that are around 5 to 7 minutes long, and I post every week. Then you can find me on Instagram. I post almost daily on Instagram, and just small bits and bobs from my everyday life, and also just fun things that aren't related to zero waste, but just all my other interests. And then you can find me on Facebook. My Facebook functions more as a news vessel where I also, share other people's articles about zero waste and other videos and stuff that aren't mine. And soon you will actually be able to find me on Patreon, where I will also share recipes and give you exclusive glimpses of my ebook and all things.
I'm so looking forward to that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. It will launch quite soon, so when this goes up, hopefully it will have launched.
Ah, well, Gitte, thank you so much for everything you've said today, for all your inspiration, for everything you're doing every day in your life, for living that zero waste lifestyle, and thank you so much for being in this podcast today with me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, and you too. This was really, really lovely.
Thanks. Ich hoffe sehr, dieses Interview hat dir gefallen und du konntest ganz viel für dich mitnehmen und fühlst dich jetzt hoffentlich genauso inspiriert, wie ich mich immer fühle, wenn ich eins von Gittes Videos sehe. Wenn dich das also mehr interessiert, dann kann ich dir nur ans Herz legen, einfach einmal rüber zu hüpfen in ihren Instagram-Account oder ihren YouTube-Kanal. Die Links dazu findest du natürlich alle hier in den Shownotes. Und ansonsten war es für mich auch wirklich wieder so spannend, mit Gitte über das Thema Zero Waste Reisen zu sprechen und wie schwierig es auch manchmal ist, in Bezug auf nachhaltige Entscheidungen immer die Balance zu finden zwischen der Erfüllung der eigenen Wünsche und der Notwendigkeiten, die sich eben manchmal einfach ergeben. Und es einfach immer wieder darum geht, die in dem Moment richtige Entscheidung zu treffen. Und das eben auf Basis aller äußeren Umstände und der Wünsche, die du hast und der Rahmenbedingungen, die sich ergeben. Und ja, Zero Waste oder Nachhaltigkeit im Allgemeinen ist nicht immer einfach einzuteilen in richtig oder falsch, sondern eben immer von so vielen äußeren Faktoren abhängig. Und in diesem Zusammenhang wollte ich dir nämlich schon unbedingt einmal sagen, dass es in ein paar Tagen die lang ersehnte Folge zum Thema Verreisen gibt. Und diese Folge dann natürlich absolut unter dem Stern unserer eigenen Fern- und Flugreise nach Bali und der Talentschmiede steht. Und ich werde dir in dieser Folge erzählen, was du für Möglichkeiten hast, nachhaltig zu reisen und wie du es auch schaffen kannst, die für dich richtigen Entscheidungen in diesem Zusammenhang dann zu treffen. Und wenn dich also beschäftigt, wie du den Wunsch danach zu reisen und die Welt zu entdecken mit Nachhaltigkeit ganz wunderbar verbinden kannst, dann wird diese Folge auf jeden Fall für dich mega interessant sein. Und ich hoffe also sehr, dass du dabei bist, denn das ist auch wirklich ein Thema, was mir unglaublich am Herzen liegt. Und ich freue mich, oder beziehungsweise wir freuen uns natürlich auch so sehr darauf, wenn du mich und uns begleitest auf unserer, im wahrsten Sinne des Wortes, Zero Waste Reise auf Instagram. Du findest uns unter @don'twastebehappy.de. Und ja, wir nehmen dich mit nach Bali und in unseren Alltag. Insofern sei dabei. Ich freue mich riesig drauf. Und wenn dir diese Folge gefallen hat oder wenn dir dieser Podcast im Allgemeinen gefällt, dann freue ich mich natürlich auch unglaublich, wenn du ihn abonnierst und den Podcast mit 5 Sternen bewertest oder auch gerne eine Rezension schreibst. Und dann wollte ich dir noch erzählen, dass du natürlich die Möglichkeit hast, wenn du jetzt Lust bekommen hast und sagst, du möchtest unbedingt sofort loslegen, deinen Alltag nachhaltiger zu gestalten, aber nicht wirklich weißt, wie du anfangen sollst, dann hol dir unbedingt einfach mein gratis E-Book der sogenannten Zero Waste Swaps, also der besten Plastikalternativen. Das kannst du dir ganz einfach kostenlos runterladen auf meinem Blog don'twastebehappy.de. Den Link dazu findest du auch hier in den Shownotes. Und ich habe dir in diesem E-Book einfach ganz übersichtlich nach Haushaltsbereichen unterteilt, welche Wegwerfartikel du ganz easy eintauschen kannst gegen die besten nachhaltigen Alternativen, die dich dann wirklich sehr, sehr lange begleiten werden und ja, wirklich wahnsinnig schön sind und deinen Alltag im wahrsten Sinne des Wortes bereichern werden. Und ja, ich wünsche dir wie immer ganz, ganz viel Spaß beim Zero Wasten deines Lebens. Ich hoffe, dass du es dir so richtig gut gehen lässt und wünsche dir alles Liebe. Don't waste and be happy. Deine Mariana.